A show created by the fans, for the fans. We are your home for Ohio State football coverage all year long. The Scarlet and Gray Podcast, a Network 216 production. Live weekdays on the Network 216 YouTube channel. Send us all your questions and comments on Twitter at @VSG_podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Tyler Johnson, Jordan Dalton, and Nick Leisure.
Good evening, Buckeye Nation. Welcome to tonight's episode of the Scarlet and Gray Podcast. I am Tyler Johnson, joined by Mr. Jordan Dalton. JD, how you doing this evening, my man?
Not too bad. It's going to be a good game to recap, and got a lot of things to talk about, so I'm excited.
Yeah, man, there is plenty to talk about tonight. It's gonna be a really fun show. I'll just say that we got a couple of video clips to play. Funny enough, we posted a clip and it went viral this week, so I definitely want to discuss a little bit on what that's about. But guys, before we get to any of it, again, we ask that you just take a quick second, as always, and show that support. Drop a like on the video. Subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. Again, it is completely free to subscribe, completely free to like the video, so we would appreciate that. If you are not able to tune in live, the show, of course, will be available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts as well. JD, Ohio State ended up playing very well this weekend, I would say. Indiana comes to town, of course, and we know that Indiana was a top 5 team, and they had 10 wins for the first time in school history, but the Buckeyes win this game 38-15. And pretty much the way it goes is the Buckeyes put out the cigarette on Indiana. First off, what were some of your takeaways from this game? There is a lot to discuss, but what were some of your initial takeaways just from this performance on Saturday?
Yeah, I think Indiana is as advertised. I think they're not overrated by any means. I think they played Ohio State really tough. There was just a lot of things Ohio State did to kind of stifle the offensive firepower of Indiana. The defense really played probably their best game of the season. And offensively, Will Howard had total command of the offense from the jump, 14 straight completions to start the game. Just a masterclass of offense from him. And you can just tell right now he's comfortable and he's playing his best football down the stretch. And we've made some big special team plays last couple of weeks, and that's not something we've been accustomed to with a Ryan Day football team at Ohio State. So it's been a really, really welcome sight to see the blocked punts last couple of weeks, and then we had a Caleb Downs touchdown on a punt return. We were able to get I'm not going to call it a blocked punt, but we were able to tackle the punter after a miscue, and he fumbled the snap. So a few big special team plays that really separated us during this game. And I think I saw a stat somewhere. It was saying that the amount of talent that we have on special teams compared to what Indiana did. I think it was like we were fielding, 11 4-star and aboves on special teams, and Indiana had like not a single player above 3-star on special teams. And that goes to show like the depth of this team, I think really came to play in this game. But Indiana was tough, and they hung around for a while. I mean, halftime it was only a 1 touchdown game. So and that wouldn't have been the case if they didn't fumble that snap on their own 5-yard line. So I think we ran away with it, and it was just a great performance by the team overall.
Yeah, I agree. And we're going to talk a little bit more about Indiana in general, about their perspective for the college football playoff. But I think what really stood out to me in this game, man, is just I think we're starting to just see Will Howard is just – I mean, the man's just dialed in. And even the interception he threw, I know he gets credit for it, but Jelani Thurman, a straight-up drop and right into the hands of an Indiana defensive back. So, I mean, Will Howard, 22 of 26, 201 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. he's just fantastic. I know he had a touchdown this game here at the end as well. And again, JD, we talk about it, and he's just playing sound football. I mean, you start off the game, 14 straight completions, which again, you could talk about, oh, he's throwing just bubble screens and stuff like that. He's not. I mean, he's pushing the ball down the field, throwing quick slants. Everyone acts like it's the easiest thing in the world to do, and it's not. If it was, everyone would do it all the time. And Will Howard, I'm going to read off a stat here when we show a video clip, but I mean, Will Howard's just been fantastic. I think the other thing that just kind of stood out to me, you kind of mentioned it, the defense was fantastic. Cody Simon, I don't understand why the award finalists get released before the final regular season game of the year, but Cody Simon should have been in the discussion for the Buckeyes award because he is playing with his hair on fire the second half of the year, and he's been fantastic. And I think it goes to show James Laurinaitis is just having quite an impact in the linebacker room as the linebacker coach. You see it with Cody Simon. You see it with Arvell Reese. You see it with Sonny Styles. Again, Sonny Styles moving from safety to linebacker. So we're going to dive a little bit more into this. But, JD, there was a controversial comment that came from a Cleveland radio station this week, and pretty much does not like Will Howard. I'll say that. So the really big show on ESPN Cleveland, I happened to be listening to it, and they decided to talk some Ohio State football. They don't do that very often, but this is what they had to say, and then we'll kind of get your thoughts on it. I know Buckeye Nation really had quite a field day with this. Bobby Carpenter, of course, legendary Ohio State linebacker Bobby Carpenter weighed in. I know some others have weighed in on this as well. But again, this is from ESPN Cleveland's YouTube channel. And again, you can find this here on Twitter at the SG_podcast on Twitter. So let's take a listen.
Will Howard putting out the cigarette or whatever for Cignetti. And I just, dude, beat Michigan first before you start.
He is so not a Buckeye.
Am I wrong?
It's amazing.
What is wrong with me? I did not like that. Dude, you're a hired gun. You've been here 5 months.
He's running around screaming, Google it.
What is that?
Dude, Will Howard, let me tell you something, okay? If you are a mid-level Division I quarterback.
Wow.
With a bunch of really good players around you.
I disagree. I think he's improved. I think he makes good decisions. He's a big kid, 6'4", not easily taken down. Is he enough to win a championship? Yeah. Is he the reason? No. But is he a contributor? Yes. That's how I see Will Howard. I'm going to
So JD, what are your thoughts on that clip?
I think it's a silly statement, and ultimately, well, Howard's already proven that narrative false. You know, he's playing at a level right now that we don't think we've ever seen at Ohio State in terms of completion percentage. You know, he's throwing the ball accurately. He's getting the ball to his playmakers, but I think it comes down to how comfortable he is in that offense that Chip Kelly is running. You know, he's not asked to throw the ball 50 times a game. He only had 25 attempts this past week. Completed over 80% for the sixth time this season, which is an Ohio State record for most games with 80% or more completion percentage. He should be in the conversation for the Heisman, just with the way he's played against top 5 teams this year. And a lot of people are screaming on the internet about, oh, he doesn't know time management just because of that last drive against Oregon. But I think that's an unfair assessment with how he played in that game. And him not being a Buckeye is just a silly comment because time and time again, he's been the leader in the locker room. If you hear him speak, he does nothing but credit his teammates. And he's the utmost example of what it is to be an Ohio State quarterback. And just the way I understand they might not like the showboaty aspect of him, you know, taking the cigarette, stomping it out on the sidelines. But if you heard Curt Cignetti speak at all about Ohio State and the lead up to this game, I think all is fair when it comes to I mean, we scored a touchdown late in the game when all we had to do is take a knee. And I think it was purely because of all the comments of Curt Cignetti leading up to this football game. He called Ohio State trash. He said, Indiana is the new superpower in college football. And I think he took it on the chin in the presser after the game. He took no ill will from Will Howard doing that on the sideline. I don't think he felt like Ryan Day scoring that touchdown was disrespectful, because at the end of the day, they did kick an onside kick. They were still going for the win. So I don't think us going up, what was it at the time? 3 scores was a disrespectful thing to do. And I think Will Howard was just having fun with it on the sidelines. The Google me comments, Google it. That was a Curt Cignetti line that he just copied at the end. And I think it's all in fun. And like you said in his interview after the game, Will Howard, he said, I have all the respect for the Indiana team and what they've been able to accomplish this year, but I'm also here and I'm proving that, I'm a good quarterback as well. And that this team is for real. So I don't take any, I'm not on the same side as this ESPN Cleveland show. I think that they kind of got it all twisted. And from what I've seen, Goldhammer is just an Ohio State hater anyways. So I think it's just not a big deal. But I think it's just funny that they have a platform where they can get something like that up and running, and it gets them clicks, and ultimately views get them paid. So congratulations on doing that.
Yeah, no, you said it well. Fart Smella says Will Howard's the top quarterback in the nation. Most teams would kill for Will as their quarterback. I do agree with that. So now, first off, I'm going to have a quote by Ryan Day, and then I'm going to give my response here. But this is an important quote, because for a radio station that says Will Howard's really not truly a Buckeye, the Ohio State head coach might disagree with that. So here is Ryan Day on Will Howard following the game against Indiana. Here we go.
The nation is now after 11 games. This guy is a winner. He's tough. He cares about his teammates. He's a leader. There was a tough spot this week when we lost Seth in practice, and he, along with the offensive line, Donnie and Josh, really just raised, the spirits of everybody. And that's hard to do when you lose somebody who makes such an impact like Seth. But he's got great resilience, great toughness. He's the heart and soul of our team. But there's more to it than just Will.
So I think it's important there, JD, is that first off, Will Howard is the unquestioned leader of this team. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind. I believe that. But for Tony Rizzo and Aaron Goldhammer, just some stats I want to read off to you about Will Howard. So Will Howard currently is first in the country in all of college football in completion percentage at 74%. That includes 6 games of 80% completion percentage, which is an Ohio State record, not just a single season record, a career record. So something to put in perspective. 7th in touchdown passes. He's got 26 this year. He's 7th in the country. He is 5th in the country in average per attempt, 9.6. He is 3rd in QBR at 80.5. And that quarterback rating would put him 2nd all time at Ohio State. Will Howard is the leader of this football team. Will Howard is a big reason why the Buckeyes are 10-1. And to sit there and say that Will Howard is just an average Division I level quarterback is just simply not true. He deserves to be in the Heisman conversation, and it's quite criminal. And the communications department at Ohio State in the athletic department needs to be promoting their players more, because there is no reason that Will Howard's name should not be promoted more than it is. It needs to be promoted more. He should be in the conversation for the Heisman Trophy. And quite honestly, especially Aaron Goldhammer, we know you don't like Ohio State, and that's your opinion. But to come out here and make these opinions about Will Howard just simply aren't true. And JD, kind of like you said, you clearly did it for clicks. But my recommendation is you host a radio show Saturday mornings on ESPN radio, and it's a college football show. So if you're going to talk college football, I recommend you actually learn about the teams that you're going to talk about, because you don't know anything about Ohio State football. You look at, oh, they played Indiana. Yeah, Indiana was a top 5 team. Contrary to what people might say, oh, Indiana, what? They're just Indiana. It's a top 5 ranked team. And that goes a long way, and it will go a long way with the playoff committee as well. So you know what, dude, I'm just so sick and tired of the hate that Will Howard has gotten from some people all year, JD, because it blows my mind. This is a guy that he's coming from day one and been the leader of this team. You know, he's not the flashiest guy in the world. He's not Cam Ward. He's Will Howard. He has a different way of leading. But I can tell you, each one of these guys on this team would sacrifice themselves on the field for Will Howard as their quarterback. And I think that's enough for me. You see the relationship he has with these guys. And I'll say this too. I understand some people not liking the celebration that he had, putting out the cigarette for Curt Cignetti and saying, Google this. You know what? I'm glad that we finally have a quarterback that has swagger to him, that has an edge to him. I'm telling you, that motivates the guys around you, that motivates your football team. And I love the fact that that is who he is. And I said this today, and JD, I stand by it. I'm glad we have Julian Sayin, and I'm glad we have Aaron Nolan, Tavian St. Clair coming in. But I'm going to miss Will Howard when he's gone, because he has been, just from a fan perspective, has been one of my favorite Buckeye quarterbacks. You can see what it means to this guy to be the quarterback at Ohio State. And I feel like this day and age of college football, man, everyone is motivated by money. Not everybody, but a large portion of players are. And you have a guy that, even though I'm sure he's compensated pretty well, it means something to him to be the quarterback of Ohio State. And I think that just really stands out to me. So
yeah,
I had to get that off my chest.
Yeah, and he did a press conference. I believe it was either today or yesterday, and he was talking about kind of the lead up to the Ohio State, Team Up North game this weekend, and he was really talking about his teammates and the ones that came back for this game, and Ryan Day not being able to get a win the last 3 years, and how much it means to him to get a win for those guys, because he hasn't been a part of it the last couple of years. And, he's a transfer, but he grew up in the Midwest. He grew up a fan of Penn State, and he's seen this rivalry from afar, and he knows how big of a game this is. And I think he went on to say, he owes Ryan Day the world. He owes him everything because of the opportunity that Ryan Day gave him. Not only gave him to come to Ohio State, but Ryan Day went out and got him to come to Ohio State.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of respect for Ryan Day, and I think Will Howard has taken that opportunity and has really done the most with it. And like, if he gets a win this weekend, it's just going to put the cherry on top of one of the best seasons of Ohio State football that we've ever seen from a quarterback. And yeah, I agree, TJ. At first I wasn't too sure about him. And even in the earlier games, we were kind of questioning, what this season would hold with him at the helm. And it's really just been consistency, the leadership aspect, that kind of is what separates him from McCord last year. And then just the experience that he brings to the table, you can just see it oozing out of him on the field. And it's been a treat to watch him this year. And hopefully we get to see quite a few more games with him under center at Ohio State. But I don't think the slander should be taken lightly at all. I think it's totally unnecessary to be going at him, especially when he's been playing so well. So yeah, I totally agree.
Absolutely, man. And again, we've addressed that, so we'll move on from it. I did say I'm going to add to that thread just throughout the year, just kind of for some fun, because now at this point it's just kind of fun. But some other things from this game, JD, I'll admit, okay, and I'm not shocking, I'm going to bring this up. One thing that's really starting to concern me, though, on defense, Davison Igbinosun has a problem. 3 pass interference calls on Saturday. And again, it's been going on all year, dude. I mean, he is up to, I believe, 11 or 12 pass interference calls against him. At what point, I mean, do you start to get a little bit worried about this? Because you're going to play, and again, Indiana's a big game. I'm not saying it's not. But let's say Big Ten championship against these Oregon receivers. You get to the college football playoff. Like, what are you going to do? You can't grab everybody in order to stop them. And these penalties, dude, are going to cost you at some point. They didn't a lot on Saturday, but at some point down the line, he's going to cost the Buckeyes.
Yeah, it's one of those things. He's a very physical corner, and that was something when he transferred from Ole Miss last year and played. It was very evident that he is a physically imposing corner, and he's very good in coverage. But I think that he's gotten away with a lot of things, and he's developed these really bad habits of grabbing wide receivers. And then when you see it against, higher competition, whether that's Oregon, Indiana, Penn State, you have receivers that can separate a little bit more, and you're getting in situations where you can't just physically impose yourself upon these receivers. You start to see these, he's getting beat and then he's grabbing, and these bad habits start coming out. And I think that this is something that should have been corrected a while ago, and they've just kind of let it fly under the radar, the coaches. And now we're in this spot where we have Denzel Burke, who hasn't necessarily been playing great. Igbinosun, who's playing pretty good in coverage, but he's got a really bad habit of grabbing. And it's one of those things where these two players could win you or lose you a national championship. Corner is, if not the most important position on the defense. And if you can't trust your two guys outside, especially in a game against Oregon or one of these teams that can open you up in the passing game. We got really lucky, not lucky, but we did a really good job of getting to Curtis Rourke this weekend and making him really uncomfortable in the pocket. But early on, it looked like they were just going to have their way passing the ball against us. So yeah, I think it is a concern, and it's definitely something to watch in the next coming weeks.
Yeah, no, it really is. And again, like, especially if you're going to play at the NFL level, like, they'll let you be physical, but dude, I mean, he won't see the field much if he's consistently getting pass interference calls. I will say it was kind of positive. Denzel Burke's name wasn't really called much. Yeah. I think that was quite a positive in this game. And then you kind of talk about the defense. I'm going to be nitpicky here because, again, we have to do that on this show a little bit. When you have a team that's 10-1, you have to find little things to nitpick. The one thing that still consistently concerns me, and I think it's fair to be concerned, the Buckeyes, I mean, did great getting after Curtis Rourke on Saturday. I mean, when you come out of the game with 5 sacks, that's fantastic. I mean, are you kidding me? Absolutely fantastic. All of them were caused by blitzes and not getting pressure with your front four. And your front four consists of 2 guys on the edge that were not only 5-star prospects. One of them's a former #1 overall recruit in his class. And I don't know, man. I feel like when you I don't think this week that'll get exposed as much. But let's say in the playoff you come up against a Carson Beck and people can laugh at Carson Beck, like they can laugh. But let's say a Carson Beck, a guy with some experience that can throw the ball around a little bit, a Carson Beck, a Cam Ward. I think we're better than those teams. But if you can't get pressure with your front four and you have to send blitzes, that's going to leave you vulnerable in the middle of the field. And the Buckeyes were lucky that Indiana's offensive line stood no chance in this game. But how worried are you about the defensive line being able to get pressure with just their front four? Because I feel like at some point, and we've even seen a couple of times, it comes back to bite them a little bit. If you're having to send blitzes to get to the quarterback, that's a little bit of a problem.
I thought it was going to bite us this week because Curtis Rourke came into the game as the #1 quarterback under blitz. He had the highest completion percentage against the blitz this year. He was really performing well, and I thought we weren't going to blitz at all. in this game. And early on, we really didn't. And we weren't able to get pressure. And then we started bringing pressure on third down, and then we started mixing it in. And we ended up with 5 sacks in the game. But like you said, I think that was more because Indiana's offensive line was definitely missing some assignments up front. And I think the 4-man pressure hasn't really gotten home this year at all. So it is a concern. The only thing I'll say to that is we have a really good group of linebackers and guys in the secondary. And that seemed to kind of be our safety net on defense this year. Mm-hmm. And these guys up front, they're great at defending the run. So there is some plus to that. It's just we can't get home with a 4-man rush, which means that the quarterback can kind of sit back there and get the ball out. And I thought that's kind of what we were going to be in for this weekend, and it kind of ended up being the reverse. So that's a good thing. We're going to have to see how it ends up playing out. But I know that jack position is going to be huge here in the coming weeks because we're gonna need somebody mixing in stunts and whatnot off the edge and doing different things, giving different looks to offenses. But yeah, it is kind of worrisome. And I know you agree with me. I know Nick agrees. So we'll just have to see how it plays out in these next couple of games, but definitely something we've been watching for sure. And we text about it during the games a lot. And I think like during this game, I had texted you and Nick, and I'd been like, man, we're not getting home with 4 men. I'm like, we need to bring a blitz. And like literally next play, brought a blitz, got the sack on third down. And I was like, all right, we're back in it. And I think they saw an opening and they just exploited it. But yeah, if we can't bring a blitz and we have, like you said, a quarterback that can sit back there and make good decisions with the ball and hit those vacated spots, we could be in for a long day. And I don't think we're going to see it this weekend. We're not really playing a quarterback this week, so we'll see.
Yeah, and again, like I was kind of surprised. Once again, dude, I talked about it, and I'm not here to be a negative. Like, I'm really not. Coaches say we need to get CJ Hicks more involved on the edge, and then again, they keep saying it. You don't see him at all on Saturday, except for a couple plays, maybe in the fourth quarter. It's like, dude, it's the same old story with CJ Hicks. It really is. Talk is cheap. You could say you're going to do one thing with the guy. Until you start doing it consistently, I'm truly just not going to believe them, because that's kind of where I'm at with this. CJ Hicks, if he's going to be the jack, which they kind of talked about, or use him as an edge rusher, then use him as an edge rusher. Like, you can't just use him one game, not use him the net. I don't know. That whole thing's weird to me. Everyone was like so hyped. Oh, this is CJ Hicks, like CJ Hicks breakout coming. CJ Hicks going to get more snaps. And turns out it doesn't happen. So that's kind of what I saw from that. And again, on the offensive side of the ball, I kind of want to move there a little bit. Buckeyes average 4 yards a carry. JD, I'll say this. I thought, again, you're shifting the offensive line a lot, and it took a little while for them to get used to Donovan Jackson playing left tackle, because, again, that's a significant switch. Now you lose Seth McLaughlin for the year, so Carson Hinsman takes over at center, who has experience, but that's another shift on the offensive line. And average 4 yards a carry in this game. Were you a little bit surprised at the fact that the Buckeyes kind of struggled to run the ball a little bit, especially with Quinshon Judkins in between the tackles? I mean, he only averaged 2.6 yards a carry in this game.
I mean, if you take away Travion's run at the end of the game where he almost – was it a 50-yard run that he broke out? Like, our average is probably sitting somewhere around high 2s, low 3s. Like, yeah, we did not run the ball well. I will say Indiana had really good defense, and like, yeah, that's the thing is we talked about it on the preview show. Like, their offense was putting points up, but their defense was kind of the underrated star of the show. Like, they have a really good defensive line. They have a lot of transfers that came in and are producing really outstanding numbers in the pass rush game and tackles. Their linebackers are really good. So it's not really shocking to see that they were able to slow down our run game. You know, the saving grace was really, we had a lot of really big passing plays in this game, specifically from Emeka Egbuka and Carnell Tate. I mean, if you go back, I'm kind of getting off topic, but if you go back to that first scoring drive, we went for it on 4th and 10, 4th and 11, after a 3rd and 35. So we had a 20-yard completion to Carnell Tate, and then they went right back to him on 4th down, got a completion. We were able to go down and score. And I think that also shows the aggressiveness from Ryan Day, but also the confidence that they have in Will Howard to make that right read. And we weren't able to get the run game going, but it didn't seem to matter. And later on in the game, it just, we kind of controlled everything that we wanted to. And there were a couple times on those goal line situations, they stopped us once. And then the next time it took us 3 straight runs to get in from the 1. So they have a really stout defense. And I think it's more credit to their defense than it was to our offensive line faltering. I think we're going to see another very tough game in the trenches this week. And like you said, we're missing some key components, moving some stuff around, but I have confidence that they're going to be able to get it figured out and really come out strong this week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's again, we're going to have if you're just joining us, we will have our Ohio State versus that team up north. That game day preview will be available for you guys on Friday. So you want to make sure you don't miss that. But yeah, it's going to be quite a fun game day preview. It always is every year. And hopefully it's a great outcome for the Buckeyes. The final thing I want to talk about with this game, JD, and then kind of move on here a little bit to talk about Indiana's playoff hopes. I think the special teams unit this year is just on a different level. And I know different guys are involved with the special teams. I think it goes to show, it really does. You don't need a special teams coach. You just need to get guys on the same page, a coaching staff that knows what they're doing. And I'm not here to take shots at Parker Fleming, but dude, you're telling me he couldn't come up with some of these things that they're doing on special teams. And this special teams unit is elite. I mean, every single week it's something. Kickoff punt return for a touchdown by Caleb Downs for the first time in 10 years. You're talking about they have blocked a kick the last couple weeks. This week they get help from the Indiana punter, but they're consistently getting after the punter. They're making great plays on special teams. And you know what? You just have to give them a shout out, man, because that's one thing you're going to need. It's a good teams need special teams, and Ohio State's finally getting that. It seems like consistently now for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, and you look at those 2 big special team plays this week, that resulted in 14 points. That's a 14-point swing. And, who knows how that game would have played out without those plays. And like you said, the good teams are great at special teams. And really the only question mark I have is if we have a kicker that can make a kick late. And, it might come down to that later in the season, but everything else is looking good to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, moving on from this game. So Ohio State, they're 10-1 now.
Yep.
Indiana, they are also 10-1. The question becomes, we're going to find out here shortly. We'll react to it on Thursday before we get into the game day preview of the college football playoff rankings. As of right now, is Indiana in the college football playoff?
To me,
this is a huge debate. When you look at it, I mean, Indiana, they don't have any great wins. There's no debating that. They don't have any great wins, but Ohio State is not a bad loss for them. It's not. I mean, you look at the strength of schedule comparison. Indiana's is 52nd, Miami 59th, SMU 77th, Notre Dame is 78. Notre Dame, everyone wants to talk about Notre Dame. They lost to a Northern Illinois team that is barely going to make a bowl game. And you look at Miami. Miami had a bad loss to a Georgia Tech team that barely is going to make a bowl game. I don't know, man. You look at it, it's going to be hard for me to keep Indiana out of the college football playoff. I don't think Miami's that good. Now, Miami probably gets in potentially. If they win the ACC title, they're in. But then, like, you look at SMU and you look at Miami, who would have a better win? I mean, now SMU's best win, it looks like, is over Pittsburgh. And Pittsburgh's taken a complete nosedive. So then you look at it, Indiana's best win is what? Probably Michigan. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on this? I think as of right now, I would put them in personally. That's just me. I don't think they're going to beat Georgia or Texas or any of those teams, but I do think that they deserve to get into the playoff. I really do. I know the schedule's not tough, but to go on the road against Ohio State, and I thought they actually played I know the score says differently. I thought they played the Buckeyes pretty tough. What are your thoughts on the Hoosiers' playoff chances as of right now?
I think they get in, but it's going to be probably the last seed before the Group 5 seed. So whatever that ends up being, seed 11.
Mm-hmm.
I think they'll get in if they win out and they win convincingly this week. I think there's going to be a really tough debate on who gets that last spot, but I think they put together a good enough resume. And like you said, their one loss is against Ohio State. And it's kind of the same situation Ohio State's in. Like, their one loss is against Oregon, but they won every other game. You know, we beat Penn State, who's ranked 4th, and did it convincingly. And I don't think if Ohio State were to lose this weekend, we would drop out of the playoff, just because of what we've put together before that point. But Indiana hasn't played anybody. You know, they've played two teams that have a winning record, maybe 3 now that Michigan won this past weekend. But yeah, it's gonna be a big debate, and I'm interested to see where they come out this weekend or this week from this weekend, where they get put in this college football ranking, which should be out here in about an hour. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. There's not a lot of one-loss teams that can really be fighting for that spot. And like you said, Miami, SMU, Clemson, they're all in the ACC. One of those teams is going to end up losing again. And it looks like it's going to be Miami, SMU in the ACC championship game. You have 4 Big Ten teams currently in the top 12 with Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, and Indiana.
Yeah.
You have how many SEC teams? 1, 2, 3 in the top 12. I think Alabama's loss is the reason Indiana makes it in. If Alabama didn't lose this weekend, we'd be having a discussion whether Alabama or Indiana should be in the playoff. But I think they're going to be hard-pressed to put a 3-loss team in over a 1-loss team, especially one that comes out of the Big Ten and one that comes out of the SEC. So it's so tough. Doug said getting a first down after having 3rd and 35 is not average. Very true. Very true. Going back to the Will Howard comment, but yeah, I mean, you look at the SEC, dude. You can't put in a 3-loss team. I mean, now Texas A&M, they could run. They could potentially be in the SEC. Now, the SEC champion could potentially have 3 losses, depending on how that all shakes out. I mean, because you look at it, Texas is in, Georgia's in, Tennessee's 5. Like, a lot of these teams have 2 losses. But also, I mean, you never know. Like, a 3-loss Texas A&M could get in based off if they make the conference title game and win. So, like, that possibility. But, yeah, you can't put in Alabama or Ole Miss in. I mean, look at Alabama. They've lost to Vanderbilt, okay? Like, they lost and that's a bad – I mean, at this point, that's a bad loss. Vanderbilt's not ranked. You lose very badly to Oklahoma. I mean, just kind of embarrassed to Oklahoma. That wasn't very good. You barely beat South Carolina at home. Now, again, South Carolina is actually pretty good, but point being, you barely beat them. Like, they lost to Tennessee on the road. Tennessee, of course, is good, but their schedule's not very good as far as quality wins. Then you look at Ole Miss, because that's another comparable team. Lost to LSU. Barely lost, but lost. They lost
to Florida this past weekend. I mean, and then they lost to Kentucky at home. Indiana does not have a bad loss, and I think at the end of the day, that's what puts them in, because I think that's going to matter with the committee, and I think it has to, because you want to look at who they've beaten, but you also have to look at who you lost to. Do I really want to reward a team that has 3 losses to unranked opponents?
Right.
No, I think that's ridiculous. And a lot of people saying, well, if Indiana gets in, they're going to lose anyway. I mean, they very well might, but I'll tell you what, and I kind of mentioned it on our game day preview, that Indiana defense can play. I mean, they have a good defense. I know they gave up all those points to Ohio State, but one of them, basically the punter, gave up. Okay. And then we had the ball at the goal line. Another one was a kickoff return for a touchdown. So that was a special teams mistake. It's not like we were marching it up and down the field every single time. I mean, that was a good defense. So I think they deserve to get in. And frankly, I would like to see them get in, but it'll be a fun debate to have. Again, we'll see what happens with the college football playoff rankings. But as we're kind of wrapping things up with this game, is there anything else you want to add before we just kind of recap the week around college football and then make our picks for the week?
Yeah, I bet the committee's glad that they don't have to choose between 4 teams this year. With how crazy it is with the 2-loss and 1-loss teams. I mean, you're looking at Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, all with 1 loss in the top 11. And then you have 2-loss Georgia, Tennessee, undefeated Oregon. Like, there is so much parity in college football this year. I think a lot of that is due to NIL. And for all the people that thought that NIL was going to be top heavy, Ohio State, Alabama dominating everybody, it kind of seems like the opposite. It seems like these programs are kind of like stretched, like the power pendulums kind of swung outwards. And there's a lot of teams that are competing that normally wouldn't be. I mean, you're even looking at Boise State, who put together a really good team with NIL, and they have a lot of guys in-house, like Gene T that stayed in. But they had a really good game against Oregon early on, and they're sitting prime to walk into the playoff here. And so I think the 12-team playoffs is just going to be spectacular football. I was explaining it to my wife this past week. She started asking me all the questions, like, how's it going to work? How are all these teams, how are seeds going to be determined, all this stuff. And it was just getting me really excited because, like, we've never seen anything like it in college football. And we're going to get a lot of really good, high intensity, winner takes all games that we just haven't seen in college football ever. Not unless you're really big into, Division 1A, when they did it all, or what was it, Division 1A, Division 1AA, when they did all their tournaments. If you watch that, or Division 2 or Division 3, they all have 16-team tournaments. But we're staring down the barrel of like the greatest postseason in college football history, and it's going to be exciting to see who makes it out on top.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I'm really excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. And there's still a lot to be determined, of course, especially given the schedule, the way it looks, especially with rivalry week. You never know what is going to happen. And
we have rivalry week followed by championship week, which ultimately
Army versus Navy.
Yeah, which ultimately championship week this year could be a first-round playoff game for a lot of teams, because a lot of teams aren't going to make the playoffs without a win in the championship. I think Oregon is pretty safe if they lose, but there might only be 2 or 3 teams that can afford to lose a conference championship game this year, which is crazy because we've seen it just playing our dynasty together. Like, sometimes it's better to not be in that conference championship game because you're not getting a loss, and it's going to be curious to see if those conference runner-ups end up get rewarded for making the conference championship game rather than punished for taking a loss in the conference championship, and how the committee is going to look at that. So I think that there's some really interesting things that could play out here in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, dude, especially I agree with that. Anyone who's we have a lot of people joining us on Twitter. So first off, thank you. There's 644 45 of you. So thank you for that. Take a quick second, just go to YouTube, drop a like, subscribe if you're brand new to the channel. Again, completely free. We have 2 shows that we upload per week. Of course, our weekly show on Tuesday nights. Sometimes it changes based off holiday and whatnot. And then other than that, we do have our game day previews. So want to make sure you guys don't miss any of that content. But anyways, JD, you bring up a good point, the conference championships, because I kind of agree. Some of these teams that aren't going to be in the conference championship are like, all right, so if this team loses, like, do we get in? So it's going to be quite a debate that goes on.
Penn State is totally okay not making a conference championship because they're going to, if they win out, like, they're sitting top 5. Like, there's no way they're getting left out of the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you're looking at, like, Indiana might have only really gotten a chance to make the playoff if they beat Ohio State and made a conference championship this year. So, like, there's a lot of things that can play out that way. And I just think it's just going to lead to an extra 2 weeks of, like you said, rivalry week and championship week, just going to be high intensity, winner takes all, and then straight into the playoff. Yeah, I'm super excited for the next few weeks of college football for sure.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, we will pick all the bowl games as well, so that'll be fun. Very challenging considering we don't know who's going to actually enter the portal or not. So that'll be really, really interesting to see how that turns out. But just a couple of updates, recruiting updates. We have a ton of people in here. I'm sure people have seen Twitter. David Sanders Jr., the top offensive tackle in the 2025 class, was at Ohio State this past weekend. That visit kind of came out of nowhere. I know for a lot of people, Tennessee was caught off guard by it. So there's a rumor that Sanders will be visiting Ohio State again this weekend. Like I said, that's a rumor. We don't know for sure. Could he visit another school like Georgia potentially? I've seen something that could potentially happen. Could he visit Nebraska again? He could. But we'll just see what happens there. I know Ohio State is doing whatever they can to try and get David Sanders Jr., one of the top offensive line prospects, and would be one of the best in school history from just a recruiting standpoint to land him. This is a guy that could potentially start for you as a true freshman offensive tackle. So something to watch there. Just other news and notes. 5-star linebacker in the 2026 class, my apologies, Tyler Atkinson was visiting Ohio State this past weekend. It's been reported that the Buckeyes are one of his top teams at this point. He's considered by many as a linebacker to be the top recruit in the 2026 class. He's phenomenal. Great relationship with James Laurinaitis. Georgia's the biggest competition because he is a Georgia kid, and that's going to be a tough pull, but we'll see what happens there. As far as just other updates, Jakeem Stewart is visiting Ohio State this weekend for the game. He's been crystal balled to USC as of like 15 minutes ago, so that's kind of interesting. He's considered one of the top prospects in the 2025 class. Other prospects, Shady, visiting. Looks like Tavian St. Clair is going to be back, of course. Chris Henry Jr., the top prospect in the 2026 class at this point. Brady Edmonds, the top quarterback in the 2027 class, huge Ohio State target. There are many more guys visiting, a lot of commits, but potentially does David Sanders Jr. show up? Do some other guys show up that maybe committed elsewhere? We'll see what happens. Don't miss any updates, guys. Make sure that you are following us on Twitter. It's on the ticker below at the SG_podcast. Make sure you don't miss any of it. All right, JD, moving on to some picks here, my friend. How did you do last week?
I actually pulled off a good record, 6-2.
Okay.
I did have Kansas beating Colorado, so pulled off the upset.
Yeah.
I did not think Ole Miss was going to lay an egg against Florida, and they did. Other than that, I was really hoping Wisconsin would play well, and they blew it against Nebraska. But yeah, I got everything else right. Squeaked out that win. Illinois somehow won against Rutgers after the horrible meltdown for Rutgers. Called the timeout to ice the kicker. Illinois made the kick, or they attempted the kick after the timeout was called. The kicker was well short and to the left. And they decided, you know what, we're not going to attempt this 58-yard field goal. We're going to try to throw it down there and see what happens. And they were able to actually score a touchdown on that last play and win the game.
I love it.
But
Just
yeah,
incredible.
it was a good week. I'm now 47-41 on my picks, so well above.
Nice, dude. So we don't have Nick's. Forgot to text him. I texted him before the show, but I probably didn't text him earlier enough. I know he's celebrating his dad's birthday this evening, so we'll get his and figure out where he stands. But I went 5-3. Colorado let me down. Western Kentucky, Rutgers. I can't believe you let me down. But I did have Florida beating Ole Miss. Thank you, Jackson Dart, for that. I appreciate it. And then so I am on the year 57-31. So we'll see how I close it out. So JD, going into this week, as funny as this is, it's not a lot of ranked game. It really isn't. It's not a lot of ranked
rivalry
games.
week, not a lot.
Yeah, there's not a lot. There's a lot of games on Black Friday. A ton of football actually on Black Friday. But also Ohio State does host the Pittsburgh Panthers at the Schottenstein Center. So in Value City Arena. So make sure you guys are actually watching that and not the football, because go Bucks. But anyway, JD, the first game on the docket I have is this is gonna be a battle. I feel like you know how this normally goes. It's Nebraska at Iowa. Now, this game hasn't been close in years past, but these are two teams, man. Neither one score a lot, and I don't know. I feel like this is going to be a pretty good game. It is a rivalry game. Who do you have in this game?
Who we got playing?
Nebraska at Iowa, 7:30 kickoff.
7:30 kickoff?
Yeah.
Ooh. I think I'm going to take Iowa in this game.
Okay. I'm there with you. I think Iowa's got the best player in this game, and I've said this before. If you have the best player, I think that gives you the advantage, especially in these types of matchups. And Caleb Johnson is the best player. It's at Iowa. Iowa's not an easy place to win at. Dylan Raiola is going there for the first time. I'm sure it's going to be cold. The weather might be a factor. Give me Iowa in this game. Okay. Moving on, man. We're going to pick this game. It might sound a little crazy, but we know Vanderbilt, they've kept a lot of games close this year. Now, a rivalry game. They get 11th ranked Tennessee at home. Who do you have in this game? 12 o'clock kickoff.
I think Tennessee doesn't have room for a slip up. I don't think they're going to be sleepwalking into this game at noon. I think they're going to be locked in, knowing what's at stake for them and their conference championship hopes and also their playoff hopes, especially where they sit in the rankings. I have no doubt that they win this football game on Saturday.
Okay. All right. I am so torn on this one because I've seen what I've seen. Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. Okay. Texas almost lost to Vanderbilt. They beat Auburn at Auburn. I don't know what to make of this team. I understand they're only 6-5, and it's like, oh, they're 6-5. But I'm telling you, man, for a 6-5 team, they've played these teams close this year. I mean, they almost beat Missouri on the road, and they were ranked 7th at the time. They went to Kentucky and beat Kentucky. I know Kentucky's not great, but with a team like Vanderbilt, it's never easy to go on the road in the SEC. They barely lost to LSU. I'm going to do something a little crazy.
Oh,
I'm going to take Vanderbilt. I'm going to take Vandy.
Okay.
They're probably going to lose, but you know what? I like Diego Pavia, and what better way to send him out than to beat your rival at home? And this is where I think he can do it. Tennessee has struggled. Nico has been kind of inconsistent this year throwing the football. I think this is going to be a lot closer game than people think. As of right now, the spread on this game, I believe, make sure I have it pulled up. Because I was looking at just like some other stats. So the spread in this game is Tennessee's 10.5-point favorites. So I think Vanderbilt at least covers that, if not wins this game. So I'm going to go with Vanderbilt. Okay. One of our ranked matchups for rivalry week, like I said, man, there are not many. Number 18, South Carolina travels to 17th ranked Clemson for a noon kickoff.
I am. This is a great matchup. Two South Carolina teams duking it out. I think South Carolina is the best 3-loss team in the country. I think they've lost to Alabama, who also has 3 losses. But man, you look at their losses this year. Their only bad loss was against Ole Miss. They lost 3 points to LSU. They lost by 2 to Alabama. If they reverse those 2 scores, like, this team is a top 5 team in the country right now. I think they've beaten a really good Missouri team recently. They steamrolled Texas A&M. I think they go into Clemson. They win this football game.
Okay. You know what? South Carolina, I've had a love-hate relationship with them all year. I really have. I really like Lenoris Sellers. I do. I like Rocket Sanders. I think they got a great tandem. Cade Klubnik has really an opportunity in front of them to punch their ticket to the ACC championship game here potentially. Yeah, I believe that is the case if I'm looking at the ACC standings. Clemson is at home. It is a noon game, though, and these noon games, like, they worry me a little bit if you're a team in this situation. I'm going to go, but that being said, I think Clemson gets back. I really do. I think Clemson wins this game. And again, I don't feel great about it, but I think them being at home in this game really does help, especially for a quarterback like Norris Sellers, who has not yet played in this rivalry. And Cade Klubnik has a lot of experience. I'm going to go with the Clemson Tigers. And again, I don't like picking Clemson because I'm not a Clemson fan I do not like Dabo, but I do think they pull this game out. Okay. So we've picked. Okay. Here's a fun one. Nick will appreciate this. Louisville at Kentucky. This is only a 4-point spread for Louisville. Kentucky is starting a true freshman at quarterback, by the way. They have benched Brock Vandergriff.
Yes. Louisville's no longer ranked because
correct, and they're only a 4-point favorite, which was kind of surprising to see, especially when you're starting a true freshman in his first game of the year and it's against your rival.
Yeah, Louisville's one of Notre Dame's ranked wins this year.
Yeah.
So, man, Kentucky's been kind of a train wreck since their win against Ole Miss. They lost 4 straight to Vanderbilt, Florida, Auburn, and Tennessee. Pulled off a huge win against Murray State, who just gave up 8 touchdowns to a grad assistant quarterback, if you haven't seen it. So not really anything highly to say about Kentucky's football team coming off a loss against Texas. Give me the Louisville Cardinals. I think they're going to pull off the win away.
All right. Okay. I'm going to get to just like some of the remaining because we'll probably circle back on some of these, but I want to make sure we get certain games.
Who do you got?
Huh?
Who'd you pick?
Oh, crap. My bad. Yeah, I got Louisville as well. Okay. I don't trust a true freshman quarterback starting a rivalry game for the first time, especially when you're Kentucky. They have Gavin Wimsatt, who was their backup, and now, unless he's hurt, he's not. I don't really understand what they're doing. I don't understand. Yeah. Nick probably knows better than we do. But, yeah, I don't know much about what's going on at Kentucky. It's a very, very weird situation, to say the least. Okay, moving on here. We have Tech. This is the nightcap. Number 3 Texas at 15th ranked Texas A&M. 7:30 kickoff on ABC.
Oh, that's a juicy game. That's a juicy game. I think Texas is just, they're the team to beat in the SEC right now. Honestly, they had their one slip up against Georgia, but other than that loss, they have just been on an absolute tear this year. Give me Texas A&M at home.
Okay. All right.
It's going to be a hard.
No, listen. So Texas A&M's coming off a loss against at Auburn. Okay, that was, I mean, for those who didn't, I mean, a 4 overtime game, just incredible. I'm gonna go with Texas A&M. I'm gonna pick them. Reason being, Quinn Ewers has been very inconsistent. He struggles to really spread the ball down the field. I don't know if he plays in this game, so it could be Arch Manning on the road in one of the toughest environments of college football in a rivalry game for only, I believe, his 3rd career start, maybe 4th. I don't know his exact numbers. Give me Texas A&M in the 12th man. I think they're going to pull this off in College Station. So, I got the Aggies. I do think it's going to be an incredible game. I'm really curious to see how, if Arch does start, how he deals with this, because this is going to be quite a challenge. Moving on, Kansas State. They are now unranked. They might end up being ranked in tonight's version. Again, we're reading off the rankings, guys, as if we don't have the playoff results yet.
Last week.
Yeah, from last week. So Kansas State at 22nd ranked Iowa, 7:30 kickoff on Fox.
Iowa State.
Yeah, I got the Cyclones as well. In this game, both teams are kind of inconsistent, but Iowa State still has a chance at getting in the Big 12 title game, so I'm going to go with them. Next up on the list here, we have 2 more games. Oklahoma at LSU. Kind of a surprise. This might end up being a good game, even though both teams are kind of meh.
Oklahoma just steamrolled Alabama.
Yeah.
I think they got a lot of confidence coming into this game. You can get a ticket for $27 according to ESPN. Don't know if this is a
7 o'clock kickoff, by the way. I forgot to mention that.
I think LSU is going to handle business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so I'll take the Tigers.
I do too, man. I'm right there with you. I got LSU. They're at home. It's a night game. It's very difficult to win a night game in Death Valley. It is. And the final game we're going to pick, you might wonder, why are we picking this? Number 8 Miami at Syracuse, 3:30 kickoff.
Oh. Man.
I'm so afraid to pick Syracuse in this game. I really am. Because I just don't know because Kyle McCord had a great game on Saturday, so that means probably won't this Saturday. But
it's crazy though.
You never know.
If Clemson wins, SMU wins, Miami's out of the ACC championship game.
And they're out of the playoff for sure. I mean, if that happens,
you think
they have to be a two-loss Miami. That's best win is Florida. I don't think they get in at that point. I really don't. I don't know how you justify it.
I think Syracuse throws the ball 50 times, and I think Miami throws the ball 50 times. And the quarterback that throws the most interceptions loses this game. My money in this football game is on Kyle McCord to throw more interceptions. So give me a Miami.
I want to do it so bad. But there's also at stake is trying to win the rig. Oh, wait. No, we have conference championship games. Okay. Yeah. So never mind. I was going to – because we'll end up picking every one of those games. So far, I've got one upset with Vanderbilt. Am I going to go with another one? You know what? I'm going to do it. I'm not confident about it. But you know what? Sometimes you have to take a chance in life. And I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to go with Kyle McCord in Syracuse in the Carrier Dome at home. I just think, you know what? If they're going to pull this off, it's going to be now. And it's the opportunity. Cam Ward, everyone talks about Cam Ward, okay? He is not – I mean, he has struggled in some games this year before finally figuring it out and turning it on. Kyle McCord's been inconsistent too, but you know what I like? I like the fact that Syracuse is at home in this game, in the Dome. So, yeah, give me Syracuse. I know Miami's an 11-point favorite. I don't like that. I think Syracuse covers. So,
Oh,
all right. There it is.
Final
Regular season picks of the year. Because then again, conference championship games, and then of course we'll do Army and Navy as well. Just of course that'll be fun. Then bowl picks. But JD, my man, before we wrap things up, anything else you want to add?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, guys, 777 of you watched this live episode. First off, thank you guys so much. All I'm asking, it does not, it's very easy to do. Go to YouTube if you have the app. If not, go to the website, type in Network 216, find the show. It'll still show live. It'll have a great thumbnail of Curt Cignetti in a dumpster and Caleb Downs doing a peace sign on the punt return for a touchdown. Go like this video and subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. 2 episodes per week, guys, including this episode and your weekly game day previews. But you want to make sure you don't miss any Ohio State football content. Again, this show will be available on Apple and Spotify. If you rather listen on audio, I know some people would, go give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. That really helps push the audio version out. We are trying to grow that platform more. So if you want to show that support, again, another way to do that for completely free. And also, anytime you're listening to the show, send us a screenshot. Kind of just show the love for the show. We really would appreciate that. But we will be back for your Ohio State versus that team up north game day preview coming on Black Friday. We will talk to you guys all again soon. Of course, as always, go Buckeyes.